following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. A's baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and one of the hosts is here today, Jerry Feitelberg, and he's going to introduce his old friend and a first-timer to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Jerry, take it away.
Well, I would like to introduce everyone in the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network to meet Len Shapiro. Len is a hockey maven. He was part of the California Golden Seals way back when Charlie Finley made them an NHL franchise. And Len has been involved with the Sharks hockey for many, many years, A's baseball, and he's been doing stats for the Oakland Raiders for 49 years. Welcome to the show, Len.
Well, thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Ralph. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, pleasure to have you. And I want to start with your reaction, even though this is an A's show. You've been doing stats for all those years for the Raiders. This is the second time they've moved and broken the hearts of a lot of fans. What was your response? What was your reaction when you heard of the move? And are you going to go with them to Vegas?
No, we'll start off with the last question first. I will not be going with them to Las Vegas. It's just too big a move for me this late in life to make that move to Vegas just to do football stats. But I've enjoyed all the years I've done here in Oakland. I did the first year in Los Angeles to help train the crew down there, and then I came right back because it just didn't feel right. I've been a Raider for life. I actually went to the first game in 1960 in Sacramento, California, where they played an exhibition game against the Dallas Texans. And then I followed them all the way around. I went to games at Kezar in 1960s, then to Candlestick Park for 2 seasons there. Then they went to Frank Newell Field before the Coliseum Stadium was available, and they moved there. So I followed them all the way around.
Beautiful. Are you sad? Are you sad for Oakland? Are you sad for the kids? Are you sad for the lifelong loyal Raider fans? I am.
I agree with you that I'm sad for all those people. But again, what we don't know is behind the scenes what caused us all this excitement for the Raiders to leave Oakland, where the city would not help with the building. I'm sure they wanted Davis to put up a lot of the money, and he wasn't ready to do that. And again, the NFL didn't come in and help because they had already given all their money, or most of their money, to Los Angeles for the Charger-Rams Stadium. So it made it very difficult for Oakland to proceed. And I really feel sorry for all the longtime Raider fans that I've known over the years. It's just they're really taking it hard this time because they know they won't be back this time.
No.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the other problem, too, is that when the 49ers built their stadium down in Santa Clara, it was privately financed. And so that's what the city of Oakland, they had to deal with two entities, the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda. And when you have too many cooks, it spoils the broth. And they had so many opportunities to get it done, and they actually lost the Raiders. I think that they could have put something together. The Raiders would have stayed. They've made a nice football-only stadium. They had the land at the Coliseum to build both a baseball and football stadium. Had they chosen to do so, they could have built parking structures. They could have figured something out to do it.
Yeah,
and to make it.
You're right, Jerry. You're right, Jerry. They could have figured something out on the parcel there. It's big enough. Again, if they wanted the A's stadium, they could have probably knocked down the A's stadium after they built in the north parking lot the football stadium, then rebuilt the A's stadium, or vice versa. Whatever would work. And would have kept both teams here. Now they're losing everybody virtually. The Warriors going to San Francisco. The Seals left to Cleveland back in the 70s. So it's just been a real problem for the city of Oakland. They just don't have the economic base and the big hitters to pull off some of these big billion-dollar stunts.
And yet, you see that technology is coming to Oakland. The Square company from San Francisco took over the Sears building, over 300,000 square feet, and they're bringing in 3,000 employees to downtown Oakland because the techies can't afford to live in San Francisco. And usually when that happens, other tech companies will follow, and then Oakland hopefully will become Silicon Valley North, and they'll just bring more people into the area.
Sure. I can't agree with you more. I think that Oakland's on the verge of becoming a big hitter in the tech field, and the Square moving over there certainly will help it. But it's a little bit too late, unfortunately, for saving the Warriors and the Raiders.
Well, that brings us to the third and probably the most important, certainly on this show, the AU show, with all that history of the county, Alameda, and the city, Oakland, and their poor negotiating skills with sports teams, and this A's stadium still up in the air, so to speak. Jerry, how do you feel about it? Is it going to get done?
Well, I'm a little concerned that they haven't finished the contract with the Port of Oakland for the land at Howard Terminal. They've got to finalize that deal before they can go ahead and start. I know they have plans for construction, but they have to make sure that they got the land and are able to proceed. Without that, we're going to be back to square one, back to the Coliseum. You use the existing building and build one next to it. And again, that may be the final solution. I don't know. And, they're talking about, they got to get it done because they're talking about expanding baseball into Portland, into Montreal. And I'd hate to see the A's leave after 51 years. This will be the 51st year, 52nd season coming up. Unbelievable. We hate to lose them.
Yeah, that would be another big
Jerry,
one for this.
My dream was always having an A's stadium that looks over the bay to the Giant Stadium, and the romantic part of being on the bay, on the water, this, that, and the other thing, seems to be, with all the ecological problems and the trucking people in and out of there in that locale, that they'd be better off in the existing position, the existing location. BART is already there. You got all the infrastructure complete. There are no ecological studies anymore, any of that. Wouldn't it be much more simple and let's just get it done once and for all?
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Rhetorical question.
But, if you go over anyone if anyone goes over to Jack London Square, you will see that most of the roads going down to Jack London Square and going up to it to Howard Terminal are two-lane roads. And so now you're going to have 40,000 people coming in. You have the BART stations at West Oakland and 12th Street, and you have to have a shuttle or some way of getting the people from the BART stations to the game. And there's limited parking in the area. And in addition, you hit the nail on the head. It's a working port. Right next to the Howard Terminal is Schnitzer Steel, and they do a lot of grinding of metals and melting down stuff. There could be noise at the ball game from the steelworks. So that's not a pleasant thing. When you go over to AT&T Park, it's the only thing around there. They have restaurants around there, and they're making it a nice destination, and it's comfortable. Parking is limited there too, but between BART and the Muni makes it easy to get to Ballpark. The streetcar just drops you off right in front of the park. So it's a lot different situation. They don't have streetcars running up to the Howard Terminal, and it's going to be a nightmare for people to get there. I'm not sold on that location.
Well, we've talked about this at several A's games, Jerry, you and I, when we were in the press box there, and I just say that the key is transportation. Make it as easy as possible to get to the stadium, and how can you miss with 880, now Amtrak, and BART? I mean, that's three great transportation modes to get to a stadium where I just can't believe they would pull off a gondola to move the people from downtown in a gondola. That just sounds really strange to me.
Yeah, you're not going to ferry 18,000 people in an hour over from 12th Street to the ballpark. It doesn't work that way. You're absolutely correct. I think the number was 6,000 an hour, and if you get a 35,000 seat stadium, it'll take 3 or 4 hours to ferry 12 to 15,000 people.
Yeah, and you got all the buses. Imagine how many buses you'd need. What a bus shuttle system you'd have to put together to get people down. It'd be incredible.
Well, you ought to, if you need a bus system, the guys you ought to hire are the guys that run the bus systems for Facebook, Apple, and Google. They know how to run bus systems.
Yeah.
Pick up the employees.
That's right.
Yeah, they shuttle them all over, and believe me, they have experience with that because they're ahead of the game trying to beat the traffic congestion that wasn't there 40 years ago when 40, it's almost 50 years ago when the Raiders and the A's came to Oakland. So
no, traffic on Sunday now is what it used to be during a work day during the week. It's that heavy. There used to be nobody on the freeway on Sunday 40 years ago. Nobody. But now, and the population in the Bay Area at that time was 50 years ago was probably 4.5, 5 million. Now it's up to 7 million. You got to put 2 million people somewhere, and they got to live somewhere, and that's why there's stress on the housing.
Yep. If you had to guess, what would you think is going to happen? Start with you, Mr. Shapiro.
Well, I just don't see them getting that Howard Terminal deal together because we also have no environmental reports yet done, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but they're going to spend a lot of time on that. And that could push the stadium there back 3 or 4 years from happening when they can just, as you mentioned earlier, the environmental studies are done at the current location. They could start building technically tomorrow if they could get the loan together. So I would think it's going to stay.
Correct.
And I think it's going to stay in the current situation, current location.
Okay.
The one thing that
Are
bothers
either of you concerned that the A's bought the Vegas franchise in AAA franchise, and I think that means they have territorial rights to build the ballpark and go down there if things fall through. Is that a possibility?
I'm not sure. If they go to Las Vegas, they'll have to be a dome stadium. It's just too hot to play there during the day. Maybe they'll have one with a roof on the cooler nights they can open up. But I don't think they're going to move to Las Vegas. That's just my opinion. I think that Dave Cavill, I know he wants to build the Howard Terminal. But remember last year, he announced too soon about the Laney College situation. And I think he did it again this year. He announced too soon before he had all the agreements tied up in a knot. I mean, I think they made more progress, but he doesn't have the land yet to build the stadium on. And if the port decides not to sell it, he's going to have egg on his face once again. And it could be pushed back a couple more years.
Well, I just say stop all this nonsense and build in the north parking lot and get this thing done. Start tomorrow or next day and get people looking at the fact that they are staying and they have a good ballpark. They're going to build a good ballpark.
Yeah, they're going to build a good, but you don't want them to be Miami Marlins. They built a beautiful ballpark, but they have a crappy team, and after the first year, the attendance dropped because the team was terrible. So it's not been a success building a ballpark in Miami. And Oakland has a history of trading their good players when they come due for a raise. Josh Donaldson is gone. You remember Mulder, Zito, Nick Swisher, just names one after the other, good players that they trade. And now, if they push the stadium back from 2023 to 2026, all the current players will be gone. Who knows who they'll have, and who knows if people want to pay the money to see them play. I don't see any sense in what they're doing.
Well, you remember the Fremont location too.
The new ballpark will cover up a lot of the problems. People will come out. In Miami, if you compare that situation, the fans were screwed twice. They had championship teams broken up twice. So how are they supposed to respond?
There's another factor, too. There's another factor, too, in Florida. You got the snowbirds. People come down for the winter, and then they go home. And then, of course, people from all over the country live down in Florida. So if the Yankees come, they'll draw a lot of Yankee fans. The Red Sox come, vice versa. Or that's the Marlins in the National League. But even so, if an attractive draw, they might fill up the stadium. But right now, with the losing team and their history of getting rid of players, they're doomed to be the lowest attendance team in the majors again next year.
I also don't like the fact, guys, that they want to have only a capacity of like 34,000, because to me that's an elitist stadium. You're just going to have high-priced seats. They're going to have to raise the prices $10 or $8 a seat because they had 45, 50. Now, of course, they didn't draw that many, but still 34,000 seats versus 45,000 seats. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's like the Red Sox. When I was a kid, it was 32,000. That's all they could fit into the place. And now I think they're up to about 38,000. But they got one of the highest payrolls, and they also have the highest tickets per any team in Major League Baseball because they get paid the salaries.
Well, you've answered my question.
You've answered my question. But with their record, though, when they have no trouble putting people in the ballpark, they've had tremendous success since 2004. They have 4 World Championships. They got owners that keep improving the park. It's it is the oldest ballpark in Major League Baseball. The seats are uncomfortable. You have bad sight lines, and yet they sell out almost every day. Why? They got a winning ball club. And they have
that helps. That definitely helps.
Yeah, and what the A's made a couple moves over the winter time. They made a trade for Gilbertson Profar from the Rangers. Didn't give up very much to get him. But guess what? That means they're not going to sign Jed Lowry. Jed Lowry had 2 good years, age 33 and 34. He probably would have come back this year for a 2-year contract, probably $8 or $9 million a year. Now, that's a lot of money for you and me, but for someone like Jed Lowry, maybe not enough. But I think he may have gone for it. They negotiated with Mike Fiers. They brought him back. I think he's getting $7 million or $8 million, whatever it is, for 2 years, which was a good move. But they can't get a starter. They're not going to get a $20 million a year starter. They're not going to pay the money. No. And the free agents that they did try, where they gave $10 million contracts to, were all busts. Billy Butler, Ben Sheets, Jim Johnson. They were all failed. They paid all this money to these guys that were terrible. They were either past their prime or on their way down. And so I guess they don't want to spend the money. But Lowry had 2 productive seasons. He was an integral part of the team that won 97 games last year. So
he will not have 2 good. He will not have 2 similar years these next 2 years as he's had these past 2. I think it's a good idea in today's day and age. Profile's got to be 10 years younger, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, he's a lot younger.
Yeah.
Maybe 24, 25. Yeah.
Yeah, that I'd go along with that. As long as they re-sign that catcher, whose name escapes
Lucroy.
Jonathan Lucroy.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, Len, that Jerry played Notre Dame last year and predicted the A's would sign him. and knew of his value. He's terrific handling pitchers.
Yes,
and,
he is. Especially the youngsters.
There's one on-field player most responsible for their kind of a miracle year when you think about it. It's they far exceeded anyone's expectations, including Billy Beane. I think it was him, the catcher. So congratulations again, Jerry. You played Nostradamus. Hey, Len, let's make a little segue here. You were heavily involved with Charlie Finley's Golden State Sea. What they call them?
Golden Seals.
California Golden Seals.
California Golden Seals. And we on this network, we on this show, we have Nancy Finley as a co-hostess many times, and we're trying to stir up some interest in getting Charlie into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well,
so
he's very innovative in baseball, and he was very, very innovative in hockey, even though the old-timers fought him on every movie made. For example, the names on the backs of uniforms, he started that in the hockey, and he did that in baseball. Yep. And he had to take two sets of uniforms on the road.
How did it come to be that Charlie got involved with hockey?
Well, he was across the hall, technically across the hall with the A's, and the team came up for availability because the previous owners couldn't handle it. And he's supposedly the big showman, and he figured he could maneuver with promotions and stuff like that to make the hockey club profitable.
Okay. Was it for a while?
Never.
Was there any sign of it being a go? Because eventually they sold to Cleveland.
Never, Ralph. It was never viable in any year it operated in. It was 9 years of mismanagement and poor decisions. And eventually, as you said just then, it was sold off to Cleveland because, again, they couldn't get an arena built here in the Bay Area. They were trying to build an arena in San Jose in the First Street Avenue area, and it couldn't be done. And eventually, when that was pulled, he tried to get Moscone and Alioto in San Francisco to do a building. I actually measured where the Moscone Center is right now. That was supposed to be a sports arena. But the Chamber of Commerce put a lot of pressure on Moscone and Alioto, saying we need a convention center to bring in all these people for the hotel rooms here in town. And that's what happened. Moscone nixed the deal. Mel Swig said, I got screwed, and I'm going to move the team. And he brought in George Gund, who had the Cleveland Barons Hockey Club, and he moved them to Cleveland.
Wow, what a loss.
It was 9 years of total mismanagement. I mean, they gave the team probably originally to the wrong person. Bing Crosby and Mel Swig were the competing groups going against Barry Van Gerbing, but Van Gerbing had connections in the NHL office, and Clarence Campbell decided that he should get the franchise. That was the initial prime mistake. Van Gerbing had no knowledge of the Bay Area. He came in with, my famous words are again, elitist attitude, and thought that the seats would be sold out in 1 minute, and it never happened. And the team he chose when the draft was not like the Vegas Knights for sure. It was a pretty poor ragtag group of veterans, and they just didn't perform, and eventually, again, attendance fell and fell and fell, and that spelled the doom of the team.
Wouldn't it be interesting?
Did Charlie give up power to some hockey person to take charge, or was he overexceeding his capabilities of running a hockey franchise?
Well, he had the right people there at the start, Bill Torrey and Frank Selke. I mean, they were starting to build a team. The team made the playoffs in 68-69, but then when he took over in 70-71, he said, I just bought the team, I didn't buy your contracts. So Bill Torrey left, and guess where he went to? He He went to the Islanders and built a dynasty there. And then Frank Selke went back to work with the Montreal Canadiens. And guess what? They were a dynasty.
Yeah. And I keep thinking that Charlie Finley would be spinning in his grave to see the success of the San Jose Sharks, the nice arena that they have, and they sell out almost every night. It's so interesting that the Sharks are so successful.
Well, again, it's the
Len,
change
when
of
he
time.
let those guys go, who took over running the hockey team?
Very secondary guys. That's all I can tell you. Guys that really didn't know what they were doing. Gary Young was one of the guys that took over. He was basically a scout, an executive scout for Boston. Came in, Finley brought him in to take charge of the team, and he kind of did something pretty illegal there. He signed the guys to contracts, sent them into Central Bureau at the NHL office, and then he would send Finley a contract that showed $10,000 or $15,000 less of money. Well, eventually, the Central Bureau said, "Hey, what's going on here? We hear there's two different contracts." And Finley confronted Gary Young, and then Gary Young was fired.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
I don't remember hearing that.
Yep, that's some of the excitement that happened, to say the least. And, again, we never had a first-round draft pick. Frank Selke traded him away to get veteran players because we needed veteran players to keep the team at least competitive in some degree. And then, that's what happened there. We just didn't have the young players. I mean, then he traded the first-round pick to Selke in Montreal, and guess who they drafted in 1970? Guy Lafleur. And we got Ernie Hickey. So again, another mistake after mistake after mistake, and I'm not saying that Guy Lafleur could have saved the franchise, but he certainly would have made it more interesting.
For sure.
No doubt about that. He was a terrific hockey player. Let's talk about something that we talked about yesterday, someone we talked about, a SEAL back then, and one of the nicest humans I've ever met in my life. I used to play tennis with him, Stan Gilbertson. And
yes.
Talk about him a little. He really was bitten with some horrible luck in life.
Yes, he was. He was playing for Pittsburgh at the time. He played here in the Western Hockey League in 65-66 at the Cow Palace for the Seals. He was an 18-year-old kid, great hockey potential. They brought him back to the Seals in 71, and then they traded him to Pittsburgh. And when he was at Pittsburgh, he was going to the Dan Ward's dinner, and then he forgot something, went back home, and unfortunately the car went off the road. He was hanging by a leg from a big drop, and when the police got there and the ambulance got there, they took him back to the hospital, and eventually he had to have his leg amputated, and that ended his career.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
wow.
Then when he came out here, they fitted him with a prosthetic, and unfortunately that irritated him and irritated the stump, and then he got kind of hooked on some drugs. So then he was in the downhill spiral at that point, and never could get back in the really flow of things. And he's living now in the valley in Lodi, and he's doing real well. We had him out at some of the Stockton Thunder and Heat games over the past couple of years. So he is getting around, and he did help his brother coach a team from Minnesota at the Snoopy Senior Tournament up in Santa Rosa the past 2 years. So he's getting out and doing things.
Oh, that's good.
Now, that's a rink that was owned by the fellow that did Peanuts, Charles Schultz.
Yes.
And I got to know him a little bit when I lived up in Santa Rosa and would skate there. And he's just a pretty normal guy, liked women, liked young women. That did Charlie Schultz. And he played amateur hockey himself in the senior leagues, this, that, and the other thing. He was kind of a big hockey enthusiast. And
he helped us out quite a bit on like program covers. he developed the Sparky logo that we had the last 2 years in Oakland. He developed that logo and did a lot of work for the NHL, and I think he won the Lester Patrick Award once. And so he definitely was involved in hockey. And, of course, I was just saying, his Snoopy tournament is in, like, its 40th year, the senior tournament that he holds up there. And I used to go up there in the early years, and you'd see some great NHL players come through. Red Berenson was one of them. Terry Harper would come in. Former SEALs would be there. Len Haley from the Western League. And it was just a great atmosphere in that rink.
Wasn't Charles Schultz from Minnesota? I think he was from
St. Paul.
Yes, he was.
St. Paul, Minnesota.
A big hockey area. And he probably went to skate as a kid, and he just had a love of hockey.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look what he did. He built that rink.
Yeah.
A lot of the Peanuts cartoons was set on hockey rinks. Not on rinks so much, on the lake.
Well, that reminded him of his youth when he would go out and play on the lakes and on the ponds, pond hockey.
Right. Which they did in Minnesota quite a bit. And as a matter of fact,
we did it.
That's where Stan was from originally. And I was just so happy to hear yesterday that he's okay, because there was a book written about the Pittsburgh Penguins. And at the time they wrote the book, they couldn't get a hold of Stan. And I remember about 3 or 4 years ago talking to the author about him, and they assumed the worst. And to find out that he's okay really did my heart well. It warmed the cup.
He's just a super nice guy. He always cooperated with me when he was with the SEALs. He'd go out and do speaking engagements, go out and participate in family gatherings of people. He did several events in Hayward and Fremont where he was living at that time. And he was really a cooperative guy that you really, as a PR guy, need one player that will round up players to go to these things. And that's exactly what he would do. He'd round up 2 or 3 other guys. They'd go to these events, and it really went well. He was a good guy. He is a good guy.
Yeah, well, I look forward to getting back in touch with him and maybe having him on the podcast. That would be a kick for me.
Yes, it would be.
Hey, Len, nice first effort on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. How about that?
I appreciate that.
Come back and join us on a regular basis. We love it.
I'd love to do it, too. So let's do it. And good to hear from Jerry there. I don't see Jerry that much right now, so when we get things going here in baseball, we'll see him again.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's not that far off till the opening day. A little over about 3 months, 90 days or so.
Yeah.
Well, you should know this. When do pitchers and catchers report?
Probably around 45 days. How about that?
45 days. Valentine. Yeah. And, of course, the A's got to get early because they're going to Japan. They're playing the opener 2 games on the 21st and 22nd in Tokyo at the Tokyo Dome. So,
hey, a crazy Met doesn't say 40. Met fan doesn't say 45 days. How many days did Tug McGraw? How about that?
That's his number, 45.
45.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Great knowledge. Good knowledge. Anyway,
well, you have very little in your brain other than minutia.
Wait a minute. Ralph, I wanted to say something else about Len, and Len can tell the people. There's a museum in Alameda that Len is involved with, and it has to do with radio. And it's a museum, and Len, fill in details where it is, the hours, and what you got going over at the museum.
All right, you're talking about the Bay Area Radio Museum and Hall of Fame. We're over at 2152 Central Avenue in Alameda, just down from Park Street. And right now we're still constructing. We're open on Saturdays from 10 to 3 for the public to come in. We have not installed yet our listening stations, but we're going to try to get that going pretty quick here. We have mucho tapes available of local personalities, Jim Lang, Gene Nelson, Ralph Barberi, Guys way back in the olden days, Jack Carney, Don Sherwood. So we'll have people be able to come in and listen to that. We have record surveys from KYA, KEWB, KOBY. So you can come in and just browse around and see what's going on. And we also have a shop. If you have an old radio from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and it's not working right now, bring it into our shop on Saturday, and we have a shop there with all the stuff that can fix those type of radios, and we'll fix it for free.
Wow. Real cool.
How about that, Ralph?
Nice. Close enough.
Again,
I'm on Lincoln Avenue, so we're talking 3 or 4 blocks away, and nice.
It is.
Len, next time we have a regular luncheon at Nations on Webster, and Jerry attends, Michael Duca attends, Nancy Finley attends. We'd love to have you one week.
Sure, no problem. Just let me know in advance, and I have had lots of communication with Nancy, again, because of the fields and her uncle's ownership, and she did a wonderful job on the book, and I have a copy. I've shown it to people, and I think that she should really try to do even a follow-up book if she can find the information and get it together for a second book on Finley.
I talked to her about that, and she says there was a whole bunch of stuff they asked her to cut down on in the first book, and she's been getting a lot of input from folks about doing just that. Great idea. Yep. Thank you, Len. Thank you, Jerry, as usual. Would you please take care of your ailing leg, Jerry Feitelberg?
Yes, I am. I'm going to the doctor. But before we go, I had one more question for our friend Len. Len, what are you going to do about the A's radio situation? They do not have a station.
It's getting awful late, Jerry, as they say in the trade. I think they've really boxed themselves into a corner. I'm not saying I don't know all the relationships with the game. That's all between the A's and the game the game Intercom. But they should have bit their tongue for a little bit and made sure they had something in the works before they run out and have nothing to go to. I mean, I cannot see right at this point in time, unless they buy a radio station or come up with a lot of bucks to buy airtime, they may not be on the air this year.
Which would be another horrible mistake.
No, that could not happen. They do something with one of the college stations, I'm sure.
Well, that's what happened the last time this happened when Finley was around. They were on KLX for a while before they got back on regular radio. And you know who the broadcaster was.
Together to have any sort of AM radio station. Well, they've been on FM now for 5-10 years.
Yeah, but there's just not an AM station out there that can really give up the airtime at this time. Most of them have foreign language. Most of them have religion, talk radio. So
Jerry and I are getting religion as we speak. We're working on it.
I mean, the AM dial has changed dramatically, as we've discussed with Jerry many times over the last 20 years in the Bay Area. All the good programming has escaped to FM and have left the AM with just talk radio, foreign language, and religion. And it's just it's tough to get a station to really commit to do anything.
Yeah, even KIQI that carries the A's Spanish language broadcast will only carry the nighttime broadcast. They do not carry daytime broadcast because it cuts into their program.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it.
There you have. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's going to be very, very difficult for them to find a station this late in the game without shelling out a lot of cash to buy airtime or to buy a station.
Now, what happened with the station they were at? Or they just decided it was a no-go?
Well, I think they were a little jealous by the fact they only talked about the Giants and the 49ers. Am I right, Jerry, on that?
Yeah. it was a call-in show, and people would call in, and they started talking about the Giants. And the A's got very upset because it was all Giants, all Giants, all Giants. Mm-hmm. But the A's know, and they should have known, and they have known since they've been here since 1968, that they're the second banana in town. Just like the White Sox in Chicago, the Angels in L.A. to a degree. And when the Braves were in Boston, they were second bananas. It was the Red Sox, it's the Cubs, it's the Dodgers, and the Giants. And that's just the way it is. Even with, the teams have success. The White Sox won a world championship in 2005. You talk to people from Chicago, they're all Cubs fans. A few people who grew up.
We're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be a waiting game to see what the A's do, and let's hope they get something fairly decent to cover the whole Bay Area, and everybody can listen to A's baseball.
Good.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Entercom can't be renegotiated, but it's going to be much more difficult given what the A's did.
Yes. That's what I said. Lots of cash. That'll solve all the problems.
Lots of cash. Yeah.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
And in the meantime, the owner of the A's, who nobody has ever heard from, has not done one interview since buying the team, has more money than Jerry and I put together.
You can throw Len in there too.
Yep, you can throw me in there.
Throw Len. Well, I wasn't going to embarrass the man. And we're talking. I've got $37.50 in my checking account, which gets 1% interest. So, we got the money.
You're on your way.
I'm on my way. It's a start.
Wow.
All right. Hey, thank you guys. It was fun as usual. Len, many more times. Welcome to the network.
Thank you very much.
Be well, gentlemen. Thank you for listening. Comfortably Zoned Radio, A's Baseball, past, present, future. Host, Jerry Feitelberg. Guest,
thank you, sir.
Len Shapiro. Me, the weak link of it all, Ralph Tycho. Adios, everybody.
Bye-bye now.
The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.